welcome to
Math with the Morgans.
I'm Morgan Pittman.
And I'm Jonathan Morgan again.
And today we are looking at one-step equations.
Right.
We've not talked much about equations. We've talked about expressions.
Right. So the difference between an expression and an equation is an equation has an equal sign, where these expressions don't. So
and then actually the equation has an expression within it.
Has two expressions on each side of it that have an equal value.
Right. All right, so today we are looking at how to solve one-step equations. We're not substituting in, but we're actually solving with the variable in the problem. So if you look over here, Mr. Morgan, we have an equation is a math statement with two equal expressions. So that's just what you said. This side here and this side here need to be balanced, equal, right?
So it needs to have the same value on both sides is what you're saying.
Right.
And that's what this equal sign means. It doesn't mean the same as, it doesn't mean congruent or anything. It just means it has the same value on both sides, okay?
All right. So I know both sides need to be equal to 24 because this one over here is by itself. So I need to figure out what x is so that when I add it to 15, it's going to become 24. Now, you're going to think, well, I've been doing these since elementary school. You have, but what we're going to be doing instead of just trying to think about it is teaching you how to do something called isolate the variable.
Okay.
Which you've got to know how to do because as you go, it's going to get more advanced.
Right. So we're trying to get x by itself, correct?
Right. So I need x to be by itself. So what is over here with x, Mr. Morgan?
Well, I see that this is a positive 15. We're doing positive 15 plus x. So we need to get rid of this positive 15.
So how do I get rid of 15?
Well, I need to get 0, correct?
Right.
So 15 minus 15 gives me 0.
So whatever I do on this side of the equation, I have to do it on the other side of the equation as well.
Because it's a balance.
Right.
What you do to one side, you have to do to the other to keep it balanced.
So 15 minus 15 gave me 0,
Right.
which left what on this side, Mr. Morgan?
Just x.
Right. And then now I've got 24 minus 15. I've got to regroup. 14 minus 5.
That would be 9.
So x equals 9.
Right. So a good way to check ourselves is 15 plus 9, 24.
Which it is.
Yes. So
Right.
let me talk about this right here for a minute. So notice that this was a positive 15, and we had to do the inverse, which was
Negative 15.
a negative 15, okay? Or we subtracted a 15 from a positive 15. So you're basically just doing the opposite with the inverse operation, okay?
Okay.
So let's do a subtraction one.
All right. So I'm going to look at a subtraction. I'm going to use m minus 13 equals 5.
That's a good one.
So again, I'm going to isolate the variable, which is m. I need m by itself. So Mr. Morgan, I have a negative 13. How do I get rid of negative 13?
Well, I have to do the inverse of subtraction, which would be addition. And so if you wanted to get to 0, you just add 13.
So think back to those number lines when we were doing absolute value and getting rid of it that way. You've got to make sure you're doing the
You could think it's 0 pairs too.
Yep.
I have 13 negatives. What do I need to add in to get 0? 13 positives.
Right.
So what you do to one side, you have to do to the other because it's a balance.
Right. So on this side of the expression, all I have left is
0. Well, you have m.
m. And then 5 plus 13.
Would be 18.
So m equals 18.
Right.
And you should be able to do this one in your head. 18 minus 13.
Gives us 5.
So
That's a good way to check ourselves, going back in and substituting this m into this equation.
So those seem very simple, but as you get into more advanced math, those are going to tend to get a little bit more complicated.
That is correct.
All right, Mr. Morgan, do you want to show us multiplication?
Yes. And I really hope that you guys are doing this in your notebook as well. So we have 4D equals 48. Now there's no operation here. What's the default operation in algebra?
Multiply.
Multiplication. So this is 4 times D. How do I get rid of a 4 times D?
The opposite of multiplication is division.
Right. So you're going to divide by 4 on both sides. So this is one side, this is the other side. So you got to divide by 4 here. These right here are going to cancel out, just leaving you with
D.
D. Okay, so D equals what's 48 divided by 4?
12.
12.
So, Mr. Morgan, when I say 4 divided by 4, that's really 1. So why am I not putting a 1 there?
So you see this D here? Let me erase this so we can see it. There's our D right there. There is a hidden 1 right beside that D. We know that there's a D there, correct? There is a D. This 1 is invisible because we already know that there's 1D right there, correct?
Right.
So there's really no point in just writing 1D. It just puts a number in there that we don't need.
Right.
So what we do is we just keep it like D. And so D equals 12.
So let me get this straight. When I see a variable, there is always an invisible 1 as a coefficient.
Yes, the invisible 1 is the coefficient. If you ever see a variable, there's an invisible 1 as the coefficient.
Because there is 1D
Yeah,
there.
there's 1D there.
And the coefficient always tells me how many variables I have.
Yes, that is correct.
All right.
So let's go on to division. So let's see if I can write this correctly. So 84 over Z equals 12. Did I write that one correctly? No, I
No.
didn't. I didn't write that one correctly.
Z over 7.
Yep.
We had some bloopers on this
Z.
one when we were working on our anchor charts.
That's an ugly Z. Good grief. Z over 7 equals 12. There we go. So now, what number divided by 7 is 12? So we're doing division here. So what's the opposite or the inverse of division?
Multiplication.
Multiplication. So you're going to multiply by 7 on both sides. So you're going to multiply by 7 on both sides. Okay, you with me? All right. So now if we have this basically means that these two are going to cancel, leaving you with Z over 1, which is just what?
Z.
Z. Okay? So we have equals, we have 12 times 7, which is
84.
84. And there we go. So let's substitute that back in.
So I want to clarify this because
Right.
I like things to make sense for me. So technically here we're saying this becomes 7Z over 7.
Yeah.
And then kind of like what we just did with the one just a second ago, we had 4D over 4. We end up dividing into getting a coefficient
Yeah.
of 1. So there again, we have that coefficient of 1's technically still there.
It's still there, but it's hidden.
Yep.
If you had 0D, like this, or 0Z, what's 0 times anything?
0,
0. So the value of this right here, 0Z, would be
0.
0. So we can't put a 0 right there.
Okay.
So,
So you were showed 4 different ways to work one-step equations, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. They are all a little different, but the same goal is to get that variable by itself.
yes, get that variable by itself. And what you do on one side,
You always
of that
do it on the
equation,
other.
yes, you have to do it to keep it balanced, okay? And by the way, we will be getting a lot of practice with this.
Yeah.
So, hope that was a help to you guys.
See you on the flip side.
See ya.